Hi, welcome back to my statistics class. Today we're going to talk about probability definition. So example, image, we have a sample of 10 jelly beans, 1 blue, 2 purple, 3 greens, and 4 red. For this set of 10, we're going to draw 1 jelly bean. So what is experiment from the example? The attempt to produce a random phenomenon where we know that the outcomes could be happen, but not which particular value will happen. So this is experience. So in this example, we're going to draw 1 jelly bean. This is the experiment. We pick a jelly bean. Oh, shouldn't use the past tense. Just pick the jelly beans. Pick a jelly bean. And then look at the color. And we may put them back or not put them back. Either way. Replace or without replacement. Okay, these are called experiments. It has to be random. So that means you're not going to see what jelly bean you're going to pick. Just random choice. So what's event? An event is a connection of an outcome. Usually we identify events so that we can attach probability to them. Such as the event of, okay, I want you to specifically pick 2 red jelly beans. Or I want you to specifically pick 1 blue jelly beans and another 1 purple jelly bean. These are called events. So sample space is the connection of all the possible outcome value. The connection of the value in the sample space has probability of 1. Okay, now finding probability of the event. So for example, the probability of an event is equal to the number of outcome in the event over the total number of the possible outcome. For example, we're trying to figure out, hey, if I want to pick 1 red jelly beans, so what will be the probability? So the number of the outcomes in the event, so there are totally 4 jelly beans are red, and over the total number of the possible outcome. How many possible outcomes? You might pick up a 1 blue, 2 purple, or 3 greens, or 4 red. So the total outcome should be all of these added together, which is 10 jelly bean. And then you also need to reduce it. So you have a 2 out of 5, or you can write it 40%. So these are called probability. So probability of an event is a number between 0 to 1 that reports the likelihood of the event's occurrences. Okay, so there's 2 probability. One is theoretical probability. If we draw 10 jelly beans, what's the theoretical probability of certain events without placement? And then empirical probability. If we draw 10 jelly beans, what's the empirical probability of a certain event? So the differences between the theoretical probability and empirical probability is theoretical probability is based on the assumption that the outcome have an equal chances of occurring. So, for example, when you flip the coin, so there's a 15% of chance that you will get a tails up, and then another 15% you will get a heads up. So empirical probability means basically it's based on the observation of an experiment. Again, let's use flip a coin. If you flip the coin once, heads up, so that means the probability, the empirical probability of heads up you will get of a heads up is 100%. But the probability of the empirical probability of the tails up of the experiment of the tails up is 0%. But so in another word, I can just say, hey, theoretical probability is what should happen. Which means ideally you should have 50% of chance to get heads up and tails up. But empirical probability is what did happen. So what happened is the tails up, the heads up and tails down, right? That means the probability of heads up is 100%, but the probability of the tails up is 0%. Okay, so there's another important law. It's called law of large number. The long run empirical probability of a repeating independent event gets closer and closer to the true theoretical frequency as the number of trials increases. What's that mean? So that means the probability of if you repeating the experiments many times, for example, flipping the coins. The first try we may have the heads up 100%, tails up is 0%. But if you flip it, like I say, 100 times or maybe 1,000 times, eventually you will get to a really close result to a theoretical probability. That means you will end up to have 500 times of, or maybe 501 times heads up and then 499 times tails up. That's law of large number law. So, disjoint, also referred as mutually exclusive. This is when two events cannot occur at the same time. For example, drawing a jelly bean that is both blue and purple. We know that that couldn't happen. So that's why whenever we draw a jelly bean, it's going to be disjoint. Or when you try to flip a coin, you can both have tails up and heads up. Okay, independence. The result of one event does not change the probability of the next event. For example, when you're flipping the coin, okay, if the first time you flip the coin is heads up, so the second time when you try to flip the coin shouldn't change the result. They still have 50% of heads up and tails down. Okay, so these are some definition of probability. And we will talk about more about the rules of probability in next classes. Let me know if you have any other questions.